believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Rendes, also known as Ricky Branson. A great episode for you today. Today we have researcher, journalist, thinker, philosopher, and very popular streamer and debater from nomorenews.org, Adam Green. It was a super fun conversation where we agreed on a lot, we disagreed on a lot, which I hope made for a very thought-provoking conversation about a lot of controversial issues and theories and ideas, and it was a fun discussion. So hopefully, if you haven't been exposed to Adam Green's work before, this episode shines some light on who he is as a person, and then also some of his ideas and theories and where they come from. So let's get this intro out of the way to get right into this discussion. And before we do that, of course, I have to remind you, this is a Valley for Valley show. If you get some value out of these discussions and the thought-provoking guests and topics and conversations I try to bring to you, please consider giving some value back. And as always, it doesn't have to be financial. You can rate the show, review the show, tell people about the show. And regardless where you listen to or watch the Ripple Effect podcast, and we're on many platforms. Besides YouTube, we're on all the major platforms. And when you use that preferred platform to watch or listen to the show, make sure you give a thumbs up, you comment. Any activity will help the algorithms pick up on the show, because most of the time they're suppressing shows and conversations like these. But of course, if you can financially support the show and you're in the holiday spirit, please consider sending a one-time donation to our PayPal account. You can send a one-time donation to our Venmo account. You can also send crypto to our crypto wallet. You can become a Patreon and support us monthly. And if a small percentage of the people listen and watch Ripple Effect Podcast donated as little as $1 a month, I could easily do the show full time. So it doesn't take a lot. And if a small percentage of the listeners who download each episode the second it comes out donated, it could change my life, and more importantly, change the journey and the path of this podcast. So please consider helping out if you can. Of course, I also have a merch store if you want to get hats, t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, mugs, anything like that. Check out the merch store. You can go to the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com. All these links will be in the show description and also on my website, rippleeffectpodcast.com. I wear merch all the time, and the clothes last a really long time. I'm constantly beating it up, playing basketball in the clothes, soccer, going to the gym, being washed all the time, and the stuff looks awesome. It feels nice. It's all really inexpensive, and it's also a great conversation starter because a lot of people listen to podcasts. So if you're wearing a podcast shirt, there's a very good chance somebody's going to ask you about it. We also got some sponsors. The first one being Content Safe. Content Safe is how I get all my videos to all the video platforms I'm on, and I'm on a bunch of them. I upload to one location, and Content Safe takes that video, thumbnail, and information and automatically uploads it to all the video platforms I'm on, including also Substack. So if you're a content creator, live streamer, YouTuber, check out Content Safe. Let them know you're a listener of the Ripple Effect Podcast, and they'll definitely take care of you. And then the next one is the University of Reason, the very popular autonomy courses created by Richard Grove, who is a dear friend of mine, one of the smartest people I've ever met, and also an amazing past guest on this show and my other show, The Union Done Wanted. And if you're at a crossroads in life, if you're looking to try something new, learn some new skills, learn some new ideas, learn some new philosophies, go to the University of Reason, use the link in the show description, and you can help yourself and the Ripple Effect Podcast at the same time. Last one is Element Electrolyte Mix. This is a product that I use on a daily basis. It's electrolytes you put in your water. It keeps you hydrated. It helps you optimize your body and mind. It can prevent so many symptoms that are due to dehydration, like headaches, cramping, muscle fatigue, tiredness. It was formulated by a OG in the diet, nutrition, and health community, Rob Wolf, who has been around this world for a long time and formulated the perfect amounts of electrolytes you need to really get the most out of your workouts or just stay hydrated if you're in the heat, if you play sports, if you want to stay hydrated while you drink coffee. They have great mocha flavors and other flavors that go well with coffee. You can even make cocktails out of them if you want to stay hydrated while you drink. And that's helpful because a lot of your hangover comes from dehydration. But use the link in the show description. Check out the science. Check out all the benefits of taking electrolytes on a daily basis. And the great thing about Element electrolytes is that there's no artificial colors, no artificial flavors. It has only the stuff you need and none of the stuff you don't. And it has enough of the stuff you need to make a difference in your performance. Please use the link in the show description or on my website and get a free gift with every purchase. So use that link to get that free gift for the Ripple Effect podcast audience. But also that link will take you to their website where you can learn a lot more about Element electrolytes. And also remember, Rob Wolf has also been on the Ripple Effect podcast. So go on my website, put in his name in the search engine, and you can find past episodes and learn a lot about his product and his philosophies on what we need to optimize our body and mind. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy this amazing conversation. Have an amazing end of the year and holidays. And then I'll talk to you guys in 2024. Peace.
Well, thanks so much, Ricky. See, I had no idea. I thought either you didn't know who I was or weren't interested at all. So that's cool to hear. I'm happy you've seen the debates and, been following the videos for a while. That's awesome. So, background, I was raised Christian and played basketball in high school and college. I graduated a business degree and got a tech job that I didn't like, repairing radios. Around that time, and even in college, discovered Alex Jones. Well, actually, even before that, back like with the new atheist on YouTube, like Christopher Hitchens and Atheist Experience. Like I never really bought into Christianity as a kid, but went to church till I was basically 15 or 16, 3 times a week. And so I didn't believe it, but I was instilled with like the fear of hell and believing in God. So, YouTube came around. I'm like, hitting my teenage years. I'm looking at all the atheist stuff. I'm kind of realizing how much of a lie Christianity is. And then I discover Alex Jones and like Obama deception, New World Order, and then that leads to Zionism. What is Zionism? And so I started No More News in 2014. Started making videos. The focus has basically always been like religion and politics. And the religion that dominates in our politics is the Judeo-Christian religion, Judeo-Christian values. And Zionism is really just anybody that believes in the God of Zion, is how I interpret it and how I use it. And all Christians believe in the God of Zion. He dwells in Zion. Zion is his holy mountain. The law will come forth from Zion. So Judaism, Christianity, and politics, end times prophecy. That's been the focus for a long time. More recently, it's been the focus on the Jesus hoax. Jesus as a mythological character meant to basically theologically conquer the nations. That's pretty much the objective of the role of the Messiah in Judaism.
I'm sure you've seen Zeitgeist, the first one. I remember seeing it, and we actually have similar backgrounds because I'm Portuguese. Most Portuguese people are Catholic. I was raised Catholic. My I was actually born there, and so my parents brought a lot of those values to America and still went to church and all that stuff. But very similar to you, I always rebelled against it because I've always been a super curious person and sometimes just like to go against the grain because I like to just kind of ask questions and be like, well, why do I have to do this? Or should I believe that? Typically got me in trouble growing up. But as time went by, especially the last couple of years. So I started podcasting in 2013. I think we started creating content around the same time. First, I was like you. I I went down the atheist rabbit holes because Christopher Hitchens, the things he was saying, and many of the other ones, I'm like, oh, that makes way more sense logically than what they're saying. The other side's just saying, hey, you got to have faith. When something doesn't make sense, logical sense, it was all about like, that's just the way it is. Or there's an explanation we can't comprehend, or all these things that didn't seem to make logical sense to me and just seem like cop-outs a little bit. But and then in time, it seemed like the atheist movement just became their own extreme team, right? Like I just left one team and then joined another team not knowing. And I'm like, oh, all of a sudden these guys are extreme in their views also. And they're both saying they know. And it's like, well, none of us can actually know and be certain of it. We can have theories and ideas, and we can come to conclusions based on certain evidence or what we perceive as reality or true. It did push me away from that type of thinking a little bit. But also, like you getting into Alex Jones and stuff, him being a Christian and outspoken, did that affect your perspective on it? Or were you still a Christian while consuming his stuff? And like, how did that happen? Because it sounds like once you kind of left, okay, no, you weren't a Christian, but you still could respect the research he did. And
Well, back then, like he was always be like, it's a Christian show, but he wasn't like talking about it all the time nonstop. And I didn't understand back then the degree of how Christianity is such a dialectic and plays like the inversion of Judaism, and it's playing like the twins of Jacob and Esau. It's Jacob and Esau. It says that 2 nations will be in thy womb, and it's Rome and Jerusalem. It's Jerusalem and Edom is how they view it in the literature of Judaism. So before that, I just figured, I thought it was just like, a myth that got under hand. I didn't understand the role of Christianity. So how it wasn't as much of a problem back then that he would, talk about Christianity a little bit, but I didn't realize how his whole paradigm is framed and like everything bad is satanic and Jesus is the solution every time. And how that was used as like a control in the Judeo paradigm. Everybody always said he's Zionist controlled opposition. It's a big thing right now with Stu Peters and Fuentes, and everybody's calling out how Jones, is constantly running cover for Israel. So, but it's more than that. It's all on the Judeo paradigm. The whole conflict fighting over who the Messiah is between Christianity and Judaism. It's fighting over who is the true Jewish Messiah at the end of the day. So that's a controlled dialectic right there. And if everything's satanic, that means everything that's good is the God of Israel, Yahweh. So that's just like kind of the paradigm, the Abrahamic Judeo matrix that like I see humanity in the last 2,000 years, 1,700 years. What do you think of that? Like that idea that it's a controlled dialectic, like they both worship the same God. Are they really opposed to one another?
I battle with these topics a lot, and that's why I'm glad to have you on, because I've had Michael Millerman on, who was one of the first people to translate Alexander Dugin's books into English and actually end up getting fired and starting his own university because of it. And this idea, like especially during the COVID era, when you see just how extreme the left has gone, and I've never been one to pick a team. I think it's all, it's all skull and bones. Like, it's all Bilderberg. It's all CFR. It's all
full spectrum dominance. They control both sides.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And, there's something about the understanding that evil exists that I think will eventually, like, you have to believe that, I guess, some good exists to believe that there's some evil, right? And there is evil in the world. When you look at, and we don't have to go down the COVID rabbit hole, but I mean, I had Dr. Robert Malone on, and I had Dr. Peter McCullough on before they were even on Rogan's. A lot of this got me kicked off YouTube. I had Dr. Jessica Rose, but a lot of these people who were outspoken, not Jessica Rose, or I'm not sure about her or Robert Malone, but Dr. Peter McCullough and many of the other doctors I had on, they seem to be spiritual to some extent. And I almost feel like it was easier for them to grasp the idea that they could force feed us something that could on purpose harm people knowingly and not care. Like, I think some people struggle to grasp that just idea. It's like in war, it's like we kind of understand it, but it's like, oh, so you're saying somebody force fed a vaccine to people who didn't need it, knowing that it was going to lead to all mortality, deaths going up, and little kids having heart conditions and all this stuff. I think to the more materialistic person, they have a hard time grasping that. And for some reason, it seemed easier for the more spiritual or religious person to grasp that. I mean, does that have any effect on your thinking, this knowing, I mean, obviously being down these rabbit holes for a long time, knowing that there's pure evil out there in regards to, our unjust wars, the bombings, the torturing, the assassinations, the pedos, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, the Franklin scandals, all this stuff. Does that make you ever contemplate like maybe spirituality or a good or evil type of energy? Did you sense that? Because during COVID, we would have a lot of union and unwanted, and it actually the origin story of the union of unwanted came from COVID. We just bring researchers together and thinkers and helping each other figure out what's going on and share information. And everybody consistently would talk about how it felt like a spiritual war. And even people who weren't spiritual had this, this energy. There's something that they couldn't describe, but the only way they could describe it was it felt like a spiritual war. Have you ever, during COVID, did you ever feel like that?
Yeah, I hear him say all the time that it's a spiritual war, and it's funny that both sides think that they're the good guys, right? And I don't think that we need the Bible for people to know what is good and bad in the world. I think a lot of people that believe in the Bible believe that a lot of bad things can be good. And I think that of course the concepts, like in Judaism, it's like Kabbalistic and dualistic. There's the sons of light and the sons of darkness. There's Jacob and Esau. There's the holy and then there's the impure. So it's this thing, and every culture has it, like, the light and the dark. They got it from the Zoroastrians, even, is one of the ones that first came up with it. But so I just think that's kind of like a natural phenomena in existence, but I don't think it's like real. I think if everybody's believing that there's like a cosmic drama happening in like with spirits and demons or in a cosmic realm, and Jesus, the God of Israel, is versus Satan, it's just like the Jewish hero versus the Jewish villain in like a Judeo drama. And that's the paradigm that everybody's living under. Because most people, when they talk about a spiritual war, like Mike Flynn will say that all the time, he means a spiritual, Hebraic war under the Hebraic Torah framework.
And to go back to Zeitgeist, I think that the way Peter Joseph started off the documentary showing the history of religion and how a lot of these stories have been told and retold in different cultures all over the world, and then leading into how false flags and other things like this is all a way of controlling people. And I do think these things do get hijacked with extremists and people who don't really care about even the things that they're using to control people. 9/11, perfect example. Those hijackers that were Muslim extremists, right? Like, they were at a strip club, they were partying it up. They weren't the most strict Muslim extremists. I think that does happen. There's a lot of examples of that. There's also a lot in the world that we don't understand, right, about our past. I don't know if you ever go down into the deep rabbit hole of like ancient civilizations and Atlantis, or even just the Graham Hancock stuff, the Uncharted X stuff. This idea that like there was technology, there was a understanding of our reality or understanding of our realm, for lack of a better word, that they had, that maybe was lost information, maybe it's suppressed information, maybe it's understood at the highest levels of Freemasonry or that type of stuff. Have you ever went down those rabbit holes, and really has any of that ever sparked your interest in maybe revising your worldview?
I'm interested in those things, and I've looked into them a little bit, not so much recently because I've been more focused on the Jesus deception and just the Judeo-Christian paradigm that has been in control, that's based on the Torah, that has been in control since Christianity became the religion of Rome with Constantine. So on Zeitgeist, I just looked up, came out in 2007. So it was about that time. I was probably like 21, 22 years old. Internet's just came out and starts working nice. We got these first viral conspiracy videos ever, like Loose Change and Zeitgeist. But actually, Zeitgeist is like, when I talk about Jesus as a myth or the Jesus deception, I'm never covering any of the material in Zeitgeist. It is true that Judaism and Christianity incorporates like past religions and stories, and it's an amalgamation of other deities and characters. But the focus that I get on is how it's like prophecy fulfillment. It's a fake prophecy fulfillment. So it's a type of like traditional exegesis, like the interpretation of scriptures. So it's a midrash or pesher. What they do is they're reading all these different verses of the Old Testament to try to look for like mysteries that can be revealed by God and try to like prophesize. It's basically what Kabbalists do and the Talmud does. They'll like, this verse here means this, and it's about the Messiah and blah, blah, blah. And then this verse in a whole completely another book is related because it uses the same term and, that kind of thing. So they're connecting scripture, and they created a new story, just fulfilling one messianic prophecy, or sometimes completely out of context, not messianic prophecy, to create a new narrative. So that's what it is. It's like a mythical fabrication of a suffering Messiah that's just written from the scriptures. They use the scriptures as source material and inspiration to create a self-fulfilling story. It's either somebody made up a myth fulfilling all the prophecies that requires no magic. They write myths all the time. They're known for being creative storytellers, or all these prophecies are true. The God of Israel's true. His chosen people are prophets that can speak the prophecy deception of predicting the future. And that's this magical superhero walked the earth and did all these miracles and fulfilled these prophecies. Like, what's more likely? The one that requires all this magic with no good proof, or just the mythical fabrication explanation?
Yeah, it's it's similar to with the Q thing, right? Like, people would take something and find some way to connect it to something else. And
Bible code, they still do it today. They've always done it. They were literally like the first Christians, Paul, James, Peter, the pillars, the original Christians. Just like Paul never knew Jesus, and he says explicitly that he saw Jesus in the scriptures and in Revelation. So they're reading the scriptures like mystically, kabbalistically, esoterically, and coming up with these Bible code connections, and that led to the narrative of Jesus. And then that was taken by Paul. He was the pagan apostle to the Gentiles, and it was really a religion catered and appealing to Rome. That's why there's pro-Roman elements in it. And anti-Jewish. It was setting up an anti-Jewish opposition that gets the Gentiles to worship the Moshiach, which was the role and goal of the Moshiach all along.
So it's safe to say you've probably never been invited on JJ Redick's podcast.
I don't even know who that is.
He's a basketball player. You don't watch basketball? Did you one of those guys who play
JJ Redick? No, of course not. No, I only played Division II basketball. Had a bad back.
No, but that's
a lot of dunks. Too many dunking.
Really? How tall are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 6'4".
Nice. Yeah. No, I love basketball. I also play a lot of I've had John Stockton on. I've had
really
Boki Nakbar. He was on some years ago, but he played for Houston Rockets when Steve Francis was there. He also played at the Nets. I don't know if he played with Kidd. He might have played with Kidd and Jefferson. One of his biggest regrets was going to Barcelona. He ended up playing for Barcelona, took a huge contract, and didn't stay in the NBA. And then he's like, oh, I still regretted it, because he's like, he kind of took the money, but everybody's dream is to play in the NBA. I mean, it's a perfect example of like people getting your priorities all messed up, because NBA players will consistently take the money instead of like playing somewhere that makes them happy, or playing somewhere where they can play with the best players or play with the best teams and have a run for a championship. And then they end up taking the money. And like I always say, I'm like, when you retire, nobody ever talks about how much money you made. Like, they talk about like the runs you went on and the legacy you left behind. And it's really kind of a metaphor for all of us. It's like, focus on your legacy, what you leave behind. And this is where like religion, as I get older and I have a family, I coach my kids in soccer and basketball, and just appreciate how important family is and parenting. I don't always agree with Nick Fuentes, when it comes down to parenting being a full-time job. And if you don't take that full-time job, then you're sacrificing being there for your kids and being in their lives and having an impact. And as we know, with Google and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube having such an impact on what our kids believe, because it's what they see, it's what they hear, it's all social engineering. Like, if you're not having an influence in their lives, if you're not answering their questions, if you're not helping mold their worldview, then big tech is, and the propaganda they see on TV
Disney.
is. And Disney, yeah. I've always been aware of these things, but like once you become a parent, you're much more afraid of it, and you're much more worried about it, and you're much more concerned about it. And then I can see where, like, a lot of people who are religious, and let's be honest, like a lot of my religious friends, I have Muslim friends, Jewish friends, Catholics, Christians, they're not like extremists by any stretch of the imagination, but they do think like, okay, it gives them a reason to have these discussions, right? Like, I think I've always been intrigued with philosophy and just asking questions, like constantly reflecting and trying to figure out meaning and all these things. But I know a lot of people who don't. And if it wasn't for going to church or believing in something to force them to like hit the brakes, because in the East Coast where I live, it's like go, go, go. You don't even have time to reflect. You don't have any leisure time to think about your actions or what your purpose is. You're just kind of stuck in the emotions. I can see the benefits of, at least for some people, it seems like it forces them to pump the brakes. And it's like, okay, maybe I should focus more about being a good person, a good family man, a good brother, a good sister, a good person, and care about my moral compass, instead of getting so focused on the corporate world of being cutthroat. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about getting ahead, and that type of materialistic ideology, because it is a ideology also. Do you have any thoughts on that? Can you see the benefits of that?
I do, but I disagree. I don't think you need to be a Christian or need the Bible for us to be good people. There's plenty of good people that don't believe in any of the Hebrew Torah fairy tales or the New Testament. But I do see how this
I was more referring to the idea of, for some, like, you're obviously a deep thinker.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was going to answer that part.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't get there. I agree. So like society and individuals are almost, naturally inclined to have some type of religious belief, right? So I can see how the fear of death and, wanting to believe in a afterlife or somebody that you can pray to help you, like, all these things are very appealing. They've always been to appealing everyone around the world. But I feel like because of that vulnerability, that's why theological warfare is so effective, because it's like taking advantage of people's need for that and then supplying the answer in a way. Oh, we can speak for God and tell you what he wants. We can tell you what God's rules are. We can tell you who's chosen. We can tell you whose homeland is the Holy Land. So when you're letting other people speak for God and they're creating religions, like, that's just concentrating power. If you have the power to speak for God, or you have the authority, the divine right of God, that's really just about power. But maybe societies do need a powerful leader in the center. That seems to be a natural phenomenon as well. So, but there is some benefits to it. There's family stuff. There's also, you can find anti-family stuff and families that are broken up over religion. And it says in the New Testament that to basically put Jesus above your own family. So it could be quite divisive and turn people against each other as well. There's been lots of wars between Christians fighting over differences in Hebrew scriptures. But I'm not like a militant atheist. I'm not convinced of that there's many good arguments for God, but just, existence and possible eternal universe and eternal time and, abstract fractal universe, like who knows what's going on. So I'm agnostic. I'm not a militant atheist, but I don't buy anybody that can say that they speak for God. And I don't know. I'm not super spiritual, I guess you could say. I used to always try to like search for that kind of thing or want to believe in something really bad, but I don't know. I'm just fine not knowing. and being in awe of how amazing everything is.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But I'm curious in your opinion on like, so at the highest levels, right? Like you talk about the World Economic Forum, the Bill Gates of the world. When Bush was going to Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot of people believed that he was fighting for Christian beliefs, and it was a hidden religious war because he just hated Muslims. Some people believe that that was just a facade. He wasn't really a Christian at all. They do that because it helps them get votes. If you're a Republican and you're a Christian, it helps with your image. What do you think? Do you think that at the highest levels, these guys are truly believers, or is it just a facade? And maybe it's even darker and deeper than that in regards to, you see a lot of sacrificing, a lot of weird rituals with skull and bones and Bohemian Grove and all this stuff.
Mhm.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think there's some sincere believers and others that know it's all a ruse and know the true esoteric meanings and the roles of all the pieces. But oh shoot. I had a note down here and now I'm having trouble reading what I wrote. What was the other point that you made there about, help refresh my memory, it'll come back.
The most recent question.
Oh, I was gonna say, that's what it said, Vatican, sorry. To think of the impact that the Abrahamic religions have had over the world throughout throughout history, throughout the last 1,000 years, 2,000 years. Like, has there been any more dominant strain than the greatest story ever told, the most printed book, the bestseller every year, through the Arab world, through Islam, which is a branch of Abrahamism, through Christianity has been dominant in the West, dominant in America. The power of the Vatican over Europe and the world, immense. In the Jewish state of Israel, Judaism is central to the whole concept and, everything. So sure, there's World Economic Forum and Bill Gates and all these other factions that, have a different agenda that's not Abrahamic, but I just still see it as one of the biggest, underlying, like, it's the paradigm. If people look at this time in history, 5,000 years from now, they'll say that was like the Judeo era, the Judeo-Christian era, basically ruled by the God of Israel. Right? Can we agree that there's about 4.4 billion Muslims and Christians in the world? I think like 16 million, 18 million Jews. So over half the world believes in the same Abrahamic God. That's a pretty successful myth.
It is. But, to me, there's a concern about, so you look at like places that have high standards of living and places that have like low standards of living. You do see like a correlation between like people who are spiritual or religious seem to be more spiritual and religious, and like poor standard of living places. And then as high standard living places like the U.S., even the people that I know that are religious, there's not a whole lot of like strong practicing religious people. I was raised a Catholic and I was surrounded by like Catholics who just thought going to church on Sunday made them a Catholic. Like, they weren't practicing, they weren't reading the Bible on a regular basis and using it as a literal way of understanding the world or how to live their lives. My point is there a concern about eventually, as spirituality and religion and some of these things, these core things, are decaying or taken away from our society and our culture, and we become cultureless? Is there a concern about eventually leading to the transhumanism or contributing to that agenda? Because it starts off with like, okay, what is a man? What is a woman? You start asking those questions, and eventually it's like, what is a human, right? Do you subscribe to any of that? Do you think those are baby steps into that direction? And can you see the concern from people who are maybe spiritual, religious, or more traditional, valued family people who are like, hey, this is a step in the wrong direction? And if you zoom out, the end game could be all a part of this eugenics, depopulation agenda, and where, man and machine might just be a very blurry line?
Obviously it is more people talking about like the New World Order and worried about these things. A lot of them are Christian, for sure. Christians have largely dominated like the truther space, for as long as it's been in existence, right? a lot of the biggest quote unquote anti-Zionist, or people that are critical of Jews, quote unquote anti-Semitic, they will be Christian. Christianity monopolizes and dominates like the other side away from the Torah and Yahweh and Judaism and like the Moshiach plan of having every knee will bow, as they say for Jesus as well. So while it's true that Christians are more traditional today, I mean, it's the circumstances that we're in today, the atheist secular people that we have today is still controlled, still controlled by forces, number one, but also we're there and we got there from being largely Christians. Christianity brought us to where we are today and played a part in that. And just say Christianity never existed, Julian the Apostate succeeded and stamped out Christianity, and Rome evolved to have more of a secular type of like paganism, and Christianity and Jesus didn't eradicate all the other indigenous cultures and religions. They all had their mythos and their lessons, and maybe they picked up some good morals from them and lived in their societies, and that's the way the world could have been, and it would have been a whole lot better. But most of the people fighting the New World Order are Christians that want a one world government, one world dictatorship. They just want Jesus in charge. So it's like they're fighting the New World Order, the Satanists. But if they're Christian, they want Jesus. If you look at the prophecies of what the Messiah does, comes down in his white horse with the sword and conquers the whole world, basically. They want the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at the left. You can say their religion is scientism, right? They are very extreme with their views and believing that this thing called science has figured it all out. And, there's concern with that, too. I mean, the thing about it's easier to comprehend that Jeffrey Epstein, that's the beginning of the rabbit hole, and it gets deeper and darker and scarier in that. It's easier to understand that type of evil exists, I guess, if you do believe in a internal good from a god or some prophet or whatnot. It's fascinating because, when you go down the occult rabbit holes and you start looking into like some things that do look satanic, and it doesn't mean that it's real. It just means maybe they just believe it, right? It doesn't have to necessarily mean they have any magic powers, but there's something weird about it. And when you go throughout history, Hitler believed in a lot of occultism and these type of things. So I can see where Christian...
I think that occultism is the Christians and the Judaists calling it a cult because it was Germanic paganism is what they were going to. They were like moving away, shifting away from Christianity. The rabbis were writing articles really worried about it and going back to Germanic paganism. And they call that occultism. Well, I've heard of the Theosophy stuff and other Blavatsky and other people, shady characters and Freemasons too. So I'm not ruling out the occult, but also that's part of what it was. Christians call anything, Europeans having their pagan religions is occult and satanic idol worship, according to Christians. But before Christians existed, it was the pagan idol worshiping heathens, of God's chosen people. But also on that argument, I think a lot of people on the right and Christians would still be relatively conservative and have the same views even without the Bible. And I think actually if the right was more secular and wasn't dominated by kooky Christians, we could have better non-biblical arguments and be more effective and successful against the radical left and the extremists. And yes, the radical left is the atheist community is in biblical studies dominated by the radical left and their obsessiveness with, where are we streaming right now?
Oh, I posted afterwards, but it'll be
okay. Recorded. So yeah. They're all obsessed with pronouns in their bios and LGBTQ and snuffing out anti-Semitism everywhere. They protect Judaism and focus only on trashing Christianity for being anti-Semitic, and that's like the exact role of the dichotomy. Christianity is like to Judaism. Christianity is the evil twin brother Esau, a satanic idol worshiping inversion of Judaism is how they see Christianity. They're the holy, they're the impure. They're the sons of light, they're the sons of darkness. That type of vibe is how they see it.
Even though I am not a religious person, I can see the threats that they speak of right now. And I can see the tearing apart of family values, this materialistic reality and future that seems to be what people like the World Economic Forum and Schwab are hoping to mold and eventually world that they want to create. It's funny, I was just on Charlie Robinson. He just started a show on TNT radio, and he had me on, and we're talking about how, you know, we have so many people in the alternative media community now focus on, and rightfully so, like the lobbying power of Israel. I told Charlie, I'm like, I grew up watching Abby Martin on RT, Breaking the Set. I'm like, I remember watching that show all the time. I grew up listening to
I did too.
Yeah,
I did too.
Yeah, and she had great guests on there, and you know, a lot of guests have been on this show. You know, Russ Baker, I think I was exposed to the first time on there. I know Corbett was on there. She had tons of great guests on there. I've seen both sides of the argument, and many times I've leaned towards, and a little bit is because of the Israel lobby and understanding how pro-Israel America has been and how they've demonized Muslim countries. And if you go back to World War I and how the Middle East was carved up with the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and the West was always trying to keep things destabilized and just a disaster, so they can always justify intervention and raping them of their resources and whatnot. But when you have professors who are openly letting people say things that are very close, if not hatred and violence towards Jewish people, it makes me take a step back and be like, okay, to some extent, agreeing one thing doesn't make the other thing right. And saying that Israel has done horrendous things and has incredible influence on our policy, and we're constantly giving them our money and all this stuff, doesn't mean that's okay either. Have you found that both sides have just gone completely extreme? I said this to Charlie. I'm like, the discussion about Israel and Hamas, and it seems like more now than ever. It's almost like when you see a atheist Christian debate, right? Like people are just defending their team, and they're not willing to see people see things from each other's perspectives. And I mean, obviously you're very good at that. I saw your debate with John Zerka. And
yeah.
I could not believe how calm you were while he was like just calling you retard and just I mean, he's got to be coked up. But I will say it must be whatever he's on, the speed or whatever he's on. Adderall, yeah. But he you know, he does seem to know something. Like he definitely seems intelligent to some extent, if he could just kind of tone down all the swearing and name calling.
He said that he was watching me years ago and that I inspired him to read hundreds of books.
Yeah.
Go down his big rabbit hole.
Well, that whole world, I don't know. It's funny because like I know the name, but I didn't actually sit down and watch anything that he's in, because I don't watch Fresh and Fit. I don't watch No Jumper. I don't watch any of that crap. And it's like, you look at that stuff and it just like, I'm sure sometimes you have the same frustration that I have, where it's just like, you got content creators like you, right, who put in tons of work into like thinking out, you know, what you're going to talk about, try to be honest, you try to give people something that, you know, really food for thought. And then you get a guy who gets, I guess he's huge, I'm not on TikTok, but I guess he's huge on TikTok, who just swearing and calling everybody a retard, getting in fights in the streets. And I only know this because after I saw your video, I'm like, let me look up this guy. Who is this guy? And then I see
huge.
him.
He's a huge celeb.
Yeah, he's and it's like all these streamers, the I Show Speeds, the Adam 22, you know, all these guys. I'm just like, I don't get the appeal. I'm like, basically it is like the real world for like today's age. You're just watching drama, and then you watch like one YouTuber talk shit about another YouTuber, and then they have a reaction video, and then that guy Neon, whatever his name is, who looks like he's 12. And I'm just like, who are these people and who's watching this crap? And then when you watch that stuff, you're like, you know what? We are fucked. We're like, if this is like what people are enjoying. But I guess I'm like that old person not realizing that we were similar during our generation of growing up, because we did have the real world. We had Jersey Shore. We had a bunch of mindless entertainment too, but maybe we just have more access to it now. And that's what's concerning to me.
Yeah, it is concerning for sure. You know, people like the clickbait. They like the sensational. They like comedy. He's a funny guy. He makes me laugh. So I can see why he's been successcul.
He is hilarious.
He's like a troll. He's a huge troll. He's like, oh, I almost wonder if he's playing a bit, pretending to be like a flat earther, you know, Christian, hardcore Christian. He probably is. He's not playing a bit, but it makes me wonder.
Yeah, it's funny because the whole time you're debating him, I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, because again, I wasn't. I know the name. I've heard the name, but I never watched the actual video with him in it. So I'm like, is this a character? And you were so calm that I'm like, oh, Adam must know he's a character.
I mean, on the joke, yeah,
yeah. You're like, that you're like, okay, like he's not taking this seriously. He must know that like he's playing a character. And, it's same way that Alex Jones would play a character and get really upset while, reading the headlines and lose his mind and say something silly. And even with Alex Jones, it's like now like people get it that like, okay, he admits it that he's playing, like he's purposely going over the top to make it entertaining. And I guess entertainment value while getting some information probably isn't a bad thing. And it makes it a little bit easier to consume. But he's big on TikTok. Like a lot of people are getting their conspiracy news from TikTok, right? Like that's like a huge spot for the younger crowds.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, do you know what's huge on TikTok? I scour TikTok for hashtags to find videos to post and cover my videos. But like the Christian end times prophecy channels, so viral. Like there's people that, the rapture is imminent. It's coming this date. And then it won't happen. And then they'll do a crying apology video, and then they'll get more support. And there's so many people doing prophecies or just doing like, I think China allows a lot of disinfo to really proliferate. So there's tons of kooky distraction, disinfo theories to muddy the waters out there. That's what I think is going on TikTok and just the internet in general. That's what a lot of the internet is. A lot of false narratives to lead people down chasing ghosts, going nowhere, and distracted from like the core issues. And I see the core issues as, when people talk about it's Zionism or America, look at like Trump and how in Christian nationalism, Trump just said the other day in his speech, he said that he's going to end the war on Christians. He's going to save Christianity. He's got all the John Hagees and Mike Evans and Christian Zionists all surrounding him, praying on him and stuff. He's getting top Torah scroll awards. The Chabadniks in New York are dancing in the street, waving his flag with the Moshiach flag to "We Want Moshiach Now." I see Trump getting back in with Kushner, the war possibly peace and then escalation, more Abraham Accords, more Zionism than we've ever seen, more of a rise in Christian nationalism and Christian anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism is going to be at the forefront of the discussion in our political discourse in the West. And it is the whole dynamic. It's like following the Jacob and Esau script of the rise of anti-Semitism and evil Esau in Edom before the end times Armageddon wars. And these Christian Zionists, the guys like John Hagee and his connection to all these top politicians like Ted Cruz and Nikki Haley and Trump and stuff is, a huge issue. In Likud and Netanyahu's cabinet, with the most extreme Zionists that like they've ever had. Like this is what the next few years are looking like. And I see it just as the end times prophetic Torah, Talmud, Kabbalah, Zionist script. Like they're following it. They want to follow it. The Christians want there to be a third temple and an antichrist because then Jesus will return. Like the prophecies are leading us to a manifesting to a conclusion, and we've seen how the story ends.
So are you more concerned about for example, if there was a spiritual war between the Christians or the religious and the anti-religious factions of the world, wouldn't it be more concerning if the anti-religious faction wins and becomes a dominant, worldview and philosophy?
The dominant secular faction right now, that's why a new secular group of former conservatives, former Christians would have to form.
How concerned are you about like what seems to be a conscious attempt to tear down the family and depopulation agenda? Is there a concern about that ideology winning?
Of course. Oh, it is winning.
Well, it is
so far. When you have anti-Western, deeply entrenched in Judaism is the view that Edom or Rome is Western civilization in America and Europe, you're going to have some some anti-family, anti-white hostilities. And I see that as one of the roots of it, one of the original sources of it.
Have you looked into Alexander Dugin and some of his like his book, The Great Reset?
Yeah, he says he loves the Kabbalah. He just tweeted for a civil war in America. He wants to see America collapse. He's cheerleading on the Kabbalists and the Christian end time, or the end times Abrahamists, to have a holy war against America, and he wants Russia, China, and Israel to rise up with the BRICS and be the new superpower after America and the West is destroyed.
Well, I think if you spend some time researching his work, it's when he says America, he's referring to the dominant American ideology that we both just admitted was the dominant one right now, the one that's winning, and that's what he's concerned about. It's not so much about, and I also think that there's probably some link between the dislike of Russia, and they are a Christian value country. The country I was born in and much of the Western Europeans have been polluted by these Western ideologies, the woke ideologies. You're seeing it all over Europe. And it seems like Putin's one of the few, or Russia in general is one of the few countries that are actually pushing back against that woke ideology, the globalist ideology. And when he talks about modernity and all these things, and when you really see his breakdown of it, it kind of makes sense when you see these steps into that direction. And I think what his concern is the transhumanism agenda. It is all these baby steps into that direction. I think a lot of times, just like COVID, right? Like it was hard to convince somebody that, hey, they're asking for 2 weeks, but eventually it's going to be 2 years or 4 years or 3 years. And they're asking just to, wash your hands and wear a mask, but then it's to inject a experimental vaccine by Moderna, who does gene therapy, and giving it to kids. All these things are just like baby steps into a eventual direction that a lot of times in the moment people can't see. And I think when you look at a lot of his interviews, when you look at his book, the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset, I believe it's called, and Michael Millerman, I think, does a really good job of kind of explaining his worldviews, and he does get pushback, and rightfully so, because
he's cheerleading on Christian Russia to say that America is antichrist and satanic and demonic, and that's remember the Kabbalists believe that America in the West is Edom, Esau, and their guardian angel is Satan. They see us as a satanic, wicked nation of Esau, Edom. So he's literally parroting Kabbalistic anti-Western rhetoric when he says that kind of thing. And it's sure the secular groups are winning, but is he going to say that it's largely secularism that's influenced by Jews? Will he say that? No, he blames the Atlanticists. He blames basically white people for largely Zionist-dominated West. It's not just this. I mean, you say that like the left is winning, but Trump's about to get back in. Trump was just in office for 4 years. He'll get back in. The Speaker of the House is super hardcore Christian Zionist, right? The new guy, I can't remember his name right now. The new Republican Speaker of the House, hardcore Zionist. The Zionists are going to be back in power. The Zionists are winning. Look at what Israel's doing. They're able to take Palestine. Now they're slaughtering thousands of Palestinian kids, and they're getting away while they're playing the victim. They're getting away with it. I see them still with incredible power. Yeah, the left is definitely a threat too, but I don't see it as like a true dichotomy. I think they're ultimately, it's either communism / the Satanists is just like the fourth Abrahamic religion. That's kind of how I see it.
Well, yeah. Well, I definitely get that, but I also, to me, again, like I was very similar to yourself, raised a Catholic, kind of got away from religion, and really, to me, my values and my worldviews haven't changed. I just think the people who are defending them with me have changed. Like if I go back in 2013 and 2014, you look at the interviews I've done, the conversations I've had, I'll talk to anybody and everyone I didn't have any extreme views. I was willing to see all perspectives. But I had some fundamental things that I believed in. And it seems like a lot of those things, if the end game is eventually what it seems like, the threat of AI, transhumanism, depopulation, all this stuff, it seems like if I'm fighting for those things or against those things, the people who are fighting, who will go to the same protests and fight against the same people, for better or worse, it's going to be, unfortunately, some MAGA people. It's going to be some people on the right. It's just one of those things where just like I don't even like looking at it as a left or right thing, but I think there is concerns about the wokeism, and I don't think the people who are pushing these things even care about the isms. Like that movie Network back in the day, it's all about DuPont. It's about resources. It's about control. It's about I'm not sure the isms really matter. You know, when we went to, like I brought up Afghanistan and Iraq, was it really because we were defending American values and we're Christians? Or was it really just a bunch of elites and imperialists controlling resources and controlling a map? What are their internal motivations is hard to figure out. And I think there's probably examples where you could see people who like we said, are true believers and really do things because they believe that there's an afterlife or there's a Armageddon coming, and there's even people who look at Trump as like a messiah, right? I'm sure you've seen some of those theories where people are talking about Trump being.
I'm putting them out there. I'm the one putting out the theories.
Oh, really?
One of the first, yeah. I've done a lot of videos on that.
So for people listening who aren't familiar with some of those theories, do you mind going into some of them?
Sure. I alluded to some of it earlier. Remember I said that the Chabadniks are dancing in the street, chanting, "We want Moshiach now." He got the Torah scroll. It's almost like he's been groomed. You know, are you familiar with Michael Collins Piper?
I know.
You heard that name?
Yeah.
Oh, you're on mute, but I see you shaking your head. He wrote a book called The New Jerusalem in 2005, where he had a whole chapter on Trump, saying he was a Zionist frontman. And he had another book. I can't remember the name of it right now. I have it in a meme, but he said basically that there will be like a Christian nationalist America First movement that's going to make America great again, but it will be really just about all about Zionism. So he even predicted Trump, his movement, called him a Zionist, all in 2005, and then 2016, 11 years later, all that came to fruition. But I forgot where I started on that story. What did you just ask? The very last thing?
Oh, about your theories about Trump being a messiah.
Oh, right, Trump messiah. So the Chabadniks, Chabad is like the most powerful ultra orthodox group in Judaism. Their top rabbi was like the Pope of Judaism, and they're on the 50 most influential Jewish group. Chabad was the only religious group on there. Put it that way. So the Chabadniks in Ukraine were secretly recorded with Trump, telling him that his name in Gematria, in mystical Kabbalistic numerology, equals Moshiach. They've been saying a lot of this. They're calling him the Messiah of Edom, saying Edom is America. And the Messiah of Edom in Isaiah 63 comes out of Edom, but destroys Edom. Trump over and over again is being compared by his followers, the QAnon people and the Christian Zionists, like prophets that are all over the internet that love Trump, that are at the Jericho March and the Stop the Steal and the Reawaken America tour. It's all these prophets that are prophesizing about Trump, right? Trump being this messianic figure that's going to take out the deep state and the cabal. The Temple Institute in Israel minted a coin that he's gonna build. He's Cyrus, that he's gonna help rebuild the third temple because he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. They have him on another coin with Netanyahu called the Sons of Light and Sons of Darkness, which is the Dead Sea Scroll, the War Scroll story that later evolved into Gog and Magog, the war of the Sons of Light versus the Sons of Darkness. Once this Gaza conflict started, Netanyahu and the head of the IDF spokesman was using the same Sons of Light, Sons of Darkness rhetoric. Let's see what else with Trump. He's frequently comparing himself to Jesus. I gave up my life. I laid down my life, sacrificed my life for you. They're persecuting me because of you. I'm going to save you. He's going to save us from World War III. He's posting him next to Jesus in the courtroom, saying like, "Oh, he's persecuted like Jesus right before Easter." And so there's many things. That's just rattling enough off the top of my head right now. But I've done many videos getting deep into it.
Now, when he got banned off Twitter and banned off all the platforms, Alex Jones got banned off everything. What was your thoughts on that? Were you upset? Did you have issues with it? It does seem like on the UM Don't Want It, the last one that we just did for the end of the year that you joined us on, you get people that are like, oh, they're censoring me because of this, or no, they're not censoring that guy because of this, and they're censoring. It's like everybody has their theory on why certain people get shadow banned and other people don't, and why some people get censored and other people don't. But there's almost seems to be examples of everything. You can find pro-Israel people getting banned. You can find anti-Israel people getting banned. I mean, there's some topics that right across the board when it comes down to big pharma and vaccines always got me in trouble and got me flagged on all the platforms. But some of these other,
well, it's because that's an important issue. That's why.
That's good point. I believe it's an important issue. Absolutely. I think when it's affecting your children, when it's affecting your loved ones, when it's affecting, I mean, I know so many people who don't feel right. You look at like the work of Ed Dowd, who used to work for BlackRock and then did the book Sudden Death or Suddenly Died or something like that, about just the all case mortalities going up. The High Wire does a great job of constantly just going down the rabbit hole of all the cases of cancer and heart issues and all this stuff. It's crazy because it's like there's a lot of issues that we can discuss, but it doesn't affect us personally, right? And I think like with COVID, that's the thing that really, I think, sparked a fire in many people. So I've always been anti-war. I've always been very outspoken. It's been some of the topics that I've been the most passionate about because I feel like nobody cares because they can still go out to eat, they can still go play basketball, they can still do all this stuff. And if we're in a foreign war, or we're not, it doesn't affect our everyday life. But COVID was like, it's one of the biggest issues in human history because it's the only one that I think affected everyone roughly at the same time. I'm not sure any historical event could say that. I mean, even the world wars, there's neutral countries or countries that stayed out of it. But this affected everyone everywhere, and affected people's ability to just enjoy life and do even the most basic things that we kind of took for granted. I mean, the extent we went to find basketball courts, they took down hoops everywhere. I still play. I actually played last night, and it's a way of life. Like I feel better. I detox because you sweat. It's the strongest way of detoxing. The mental and physical benefits I get from exercise is just, it's a way of life. It's necessary for me. And when you took that away from people, and, we were driving all over the state looking for a basketball hoop, just a rim anywhere. It's just like something as simple as like going to the court and shooting around with some buddies. You take that shit for granted. And then when it got taken away, you realize like how important it is to kind of fight for those basic values and those basic freedoms. And that's why like the whole censorship thing and all this stuff, you could see how it's people say it's a slippery slope. It really is a slippery slope. Now I've gone so far off the question that hopefully you still remember it. But what was your opinion?
You asked if Jones and about Trump and Alex Jones being censored.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on that? Are you one of those people who believe?
I think it's atrocious that the president can get banned from YouTube and everything all at once, just like I had just gotten banned from everything all at once pretty much shortly before that. But I mean, it's simple. Big tech, it's in Silicon Valley. There's lots of leftists. They're the ones that are hating Trump and Alex Jones, and they were in charge of the censorship, and they censored them all. But I mean, it really just made Jones a martyr. It mobilized more people to Trump. Now everybody thinks that everything's rigged against Trump. Everybody's, he's going to swoop in and be the savior and save us from all the corruption and the incompetence and how they, the sketchy election and all the censorship and everything's rigged and the lying media. So now it's like this great awakening. Alex Jones and Roger Stone and Mike Flynn and Trump will be back, and Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. And it just, Trump's going to get back in. Everybody's back on Twitter. Trump's going to get back in. And I just think we're going to see more Zionism than we've got. And it's going to be really interesting.
How do you
But
explain?
I want Alex Jones and all the InfoWars guys to be on because that's where I can expose them, and that's where I can counter their misinformation in the replies or in the retweets. Just the day when he was allowed back on, I put up some of my old Alex Jones compilations of him totally shilling Zionist propaganda talking points against the Palestinians, or just trying to say, the obfuscation and sophistry that he's been doing for years on this issue, and it got lots of views. So,
well, I did see his debate with Nick Fuentes, and I mean, I give him credit for having people like Nick on. I forget who he just had recently too.
Stu Peters.
Yeah, it's Stu Peters.
Mhm.
Obviously, he had Kanye West on. So he is willing to have these people on. And he, when he was debating Nick Fuentes, I was trying really hard to understand, like, if he was being sincere, or is this really just his worldview? Is this just, and I think people can just be wrong, right? Like we all have moral justifications for things. What is right? What is wrong? Like that, a lot of this stuff's subjective. I mean, it's all based on your upbringing, your worldview, your religious, the influence of that on you. Do you think we're too quickly sometimes to think that somebody's a shill, or there's some deeper reason to why they defend a perspective, when sometimes it could just be like, that's the conclusion they've come to because you and I can see the same information, just the way I process it could be different, and I can come to a different conclusion and you can come to another conclusion. Doesn't mean that either one of us is wrong, but it just means that, like, we have a different perspective on what is right and wrong.
Well, I always try to just address people's arguments, or just, truths about them. Like, if I say somebody's a shill, I'm not saying that Mossad's giving them talking points, but that they're shilling for an idea or a thing, or people can be not an agent with a badge that has a handler, but they're an agent of something. They're promoting something. I'm never about like, oh, they're wrong because they're a crypto, they're a secret, which is the main thing that everybody does to me, lies about me, calling me Jewish when I'm not. It's an ad hominem attack. It's all they ever do. One side dismisses my criticisms of Judaism. They say it's anti-Semitic. And then if you criticize Christianity, you're antichrist. I'm sure anybody that interviews me, because Christianity is so prevalent and monopolizes in the way they act so culty, just by you talking to me or having me on the panel, the Christians will get outraged. They'll say, why are you supporting that antichrist? They'll call you a Jew. They'll attack you and call you antichrist. They won't support you. They'll attack you. Like that's the way they behave. That's the only answers that they have. I don't like calling people Jew, say you're a secret Jew, so you're wrong. I don't accuse everybody of being Mossad agents. I believe that maybe Jones really is a Christian and believes that Israel plays an important times in the end times, and that Jesus in his blood really is the solution. Just having faith in the scapegoat atonement sacrifice is the solution to all the Satanists and Luciferians and demonic satanic entities that are ruling the world and really behind everything.
Well,
yeah.
I was just going to say, one thing that he did say during that little debate, well, if they're ruling the world, then why was Israel one of the most vaccinated countries? Why are these universities, they're letting them say things that are very anti-Jewish? If they can control things, why aren't...
Didn't Harvard just fire their president? The president got ousted for being anti-Semitic. And like, just because like some professors speak out, like they're trying to pass BDS laws on campuses all over the world where you can't even, it's anti-Semitic to even criticize Israel or support any boycott of Israel. So just because some people are speaking out against it, and in the vaccine thing, I hear him bring that up all the time as well. It's like there's lots of explanations. They could have been, I mean, it was Netanyahu real close with the guy from Pfizer who worked out that agreement, and they were the beta test. They were the first. They led the way and showed the way to do it, and all the other nations followed. And, there's plenty of things. They could have had, different batches went to them, or, anything like that, you could say. I'm not saying that's what did happen. I'm just saying,
yeah, there's a lot of
if Jones wanted an answer, an answer like that. I mean, they did it to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I guess that was his argument. Well, if they did it to everybody, but the people who are controlling everything, why would they let it do it to their people at the rate that they did? And I can see that argument. I can also
it could be different batches. It could be
they had a high
it targets different blood types and genomes differently. It could be lots of things.
And that could be a possibility because, when you're doing that 23andMe and all your blood's going to some Chinese lab, you got to be concerned with the information that they're gathering on.
Netanyahu was like, "Oh, we were the first and we're the best. We're 98% vaccinated and it's totally safe and works, guys. Everybody else go get it." Like, see how that's kind of what happened? He's like, "Oh, we're the most advanced. We have the green pass and everybody's tracked in the big database and our companies can roll that out to the world as well." Like, that's kind of the way I see, oh, they all got it first. It almost seemed like a little Netanyahu has his syringe in his box in his office. They hosted Eric Borla, I think his name is, the CEO of Pfizer, and they had some big old like dancers, and they were like dancing out a big form of a needle. It's well,
I think,
and plagues are like a central, clear part of the birth pangs of the Moshiach and the end times as well. Wars, plagues, famines.
Well, I think the prime minister of Israel is no different than the prime minister of any country. I'm not sure he gives a shit about his own people. So even if he knew how many people were going to have adverse reactions and how dangerous the product was, I'm not sure he cared to, expose his people to that. Obviously, the Hamas attack, a lot of people are asking a very good question on how can they say they didn't know is going to happen. If you look at the history of false flags and, the way they look at it, it's like it's for the greater good. Now we can justify completely bombing Hamas or taking over whoever or assassinating whoever. These things are very complex. And one thing I do love about your channel and your work is that you've always been open to talking to people you disagree with. That's why even somebody like Alex Jones, like I said, I give him credit. And even Piers Morgan, like I don't agree with these people. But I'd rather hear a discussion with people they disagree with and actually at least entertain the ideas.
Think about this, though. I wanted to comment on that. How Jones, he'll platform Kanye or E. Michael Jones or Fuentes or Stu, but they all have something in common, several things in common. One, they all agree at the end of the day that Jesus is Lord. They all agree and believe that the Torah is the word of God. They all believe in the Abrahamic covenant. They all believe in Yahweh, the God of Israel, at the end of the day. And he brings them on, and what do? Their whole angle against Zionism is that they're bad for rejecting Jesus. They're not criticizing their religion for what's in it. They're criticizing them because it's their religion that they're a villain. And I just tweeted, one of my friends used a good term. It is supernatural slurs. You see this all the time with Christians, right? In any criticism of Israel or Zionism, you're going to see all the time Christians calling them satanic demons, the synagogue of Satan. They killed Jesus, right? These are the supernatural slurs. This is the type of sentiment you get from Christian anti-Semitism, that ultimately what all it does is make the Jews the victim, the persecuted victim. Everybody has sympathy for them. They can do whatever they want to defend themselves, right? And the Christians become the villains that are persecuting them.
That's so weird.
Oh, sorry.
That's never. Oh, it's all right. I just got here. Yeah, I don't know what that was. That's never happened ever.
See, I'm breaking the matrix code by exposing the Christian anti-Semitism, by condemning Christian anti-Semitism. That's what breaks the matrix. I'm serious.
Well, it definitely was weird to have Zoom just completely shut down. Luckily, I record the audio on Pro Tools, and
nice.
Video seems to be converting, so it recorded, so we didn't lose anything. But I know I've taken up a bunch of your time. Do you still play basketball?
No, remember I said I had a bad back from too much dunking, so I stopped probably like 6-7 years ago now. Haven't played at all.
I think we're similar in age, right?
Yeah.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in my late, almost 40.
Yeah, I'm 38.
30s, almost 40.
Yeah, I'm an 85 baby. Yeah. Yeah, so we're similar in age. Yeah.
Yeah, I still go to the gym a lot, but just the basketball, the up and down, my lower vertebrae done too much damage. Too much skateboarding and snowboarding when I was little too. I need a bacchiotomy.
Yeah. Well, that core, it's so neglected. It keeps everything together, and so many of our issues when we get older is just due to like lack of core strength. And if you look at athletes now, like they focus so much on core because they realize like so much of your jumping, so much of your explosiveness comes from your core. And back in the day, it wasn't, much of that. The athletes now are just they're freaks. It's insane. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the knees over toes guy.
I do that. I do the sled. I love for the leg workout. I love pulling that sled with the rope.
It's
So
awesome.
good.
I tell so many people who have knee issues, my knees were so bad from playing just basketball. I used to play a lot of street ball, so I was always, playing in local courts, Springfield, Holyoke, Chicopee. There's always like somewhere to play, and there's certain courts you knew that like, okay, there's good run here. And then from squatting at the gym, and I was like you, I skateboarded. I just beat the shit out of my body. My knees were so bad in my 20s that I needed to take an ice bath after every time I played ball, and still take some ibuprofen the next day just to get through today. As I got older, I started changing my diet and I removed all glucose, carbs, sugars from my diet because I realized that a lot of what my pain was coming from was inflammation, that some of it was probably wear and tear, but what was really causing the discomfort was the inflammation. And I'm a big fan of Mark Sisson and Rob Wolf too, who wrote the first books on the paleo diet, really made it popular, opened the first CrossFit gym in the US and whatnot. One of the first rabbit holes I really started going down was like diet, nutrition, and health, and how much fuckery was in that, and how much of it was pushed by the food industry or the medical industry, and just how like the human body is incredible if you just give it the right tools. And much of like our modern way of living has caused many of our issues. The modern food that we eat, all processed, and the shoe, right? Like there's you
Oh, I'm a shoe conspiracy theorist.
yeah. Well, you ever see like so you go to the Basketball Hall of Fame, you'll get kids who are like, how do these guys play in these Converse, these flat ass Converse with no padding? And now we're spending $100 on sole inserts for comfort, and we still have some pain, and our feet still hurt, and our joint, and it's because it's messing up the way we walk, right? Like putting a heel on a shoe, a soft heel. That's the first time in history we could walk heel first. And as you know, as an athlete, I mean, I know you downplay Division 2. Listen, people, for people listening, like Division 2 is no fucking joke. Division 2 is legit. There's levels to sports. I have one of my good buddies who plays overseas professionally, phenomenal player, and like a lot of our friends who play Division 2, like we go to play pickup anywhere, like a Division 2 player is dominating the court because they're just level.
I got all conference as a junior and senior in high school, and my freshman year at junior college made all conference of the leagues. Wow. But that was with knee pain too. I had terrible knee pain from like junior year to like probably second or third year in college. Just Oshkin slaughters, where you put the little strap below the kneecap. Such terrible pain, I could barely even run for years. And then it's like a growing pain thing, and you just I grew out of it. And my knees have been fine ever since.
That's the thing that people don't realize is like a lot. You don't have to live with your knee pain. And I'm curious. See, I haven't done as much research on the back stuff. There is a interesting book called Mind Over Back Pain. I don't think this is your issue, but it was this guy. What is his name? Dr. Sorno, who found out a lot of people who had stress, that their bodies was actually finding like a little bit of pain or a little bit of discomfort, and it was making it worse due to the stress. And so some of it was mental, because what he was like one of the leading back surgeons in the US, and he was going through all these x-rays and MRIs, and he's like, this isn't making any sense. He's like, I see people who have extreme back pain, but looking at the x-rays, he's like, I don't see a lot there. And then I see people who have minimal back pain, and I look at the x-rays and their back's all messed up. And then he started asking these questions like, hey, what's going on in your life? And come to find out, a lot of these people are just stressed. Like it was this mind-body connection that they were kind of disregarding, like this idea of like, if you work on your mental health, physical health is going to improve a bit. It makes sense, right? Because if sports, so much of it's a zone thing and it's a confidence thing. Like when I coach my kids in basketball, I'm always like, hey, make sure they miss their first shot. Get up on them. Don't play lazy the first possession of the game and let them get in a rhythm because, all sports, it's confidence. And if you make that first shot, you start thinking like, I'm going to have a good game today. Or you can get in their head early, they miss the first shot, and it's like, oh crap, I might have a bad game today. So much of it's mental, right? And it's like the best players are people who have the combination of hardware and software. Larry Bird, for example, not a very athletic guy, but incredibly confident. And that confidence led to him being able to make those big shots. Cristiano Ronaldo making a big PK or whatnot. So like the mental part of it is like a missing part of the puzzle, I think, to a lot of athletes. Like they focus so much on their skill work or whatever, but you got to be able to be mentally strong and convince yourself every time you're out there, you're the best player out there and you're capable of taking a guy one-on-one or stopping a guy defensively. The sports philosophy to me is so interesting. Do you still watch basketball or keep up with sports at all?
I'll see like highlights sometimes, or maybe once in a blue moon watch a game if it's a big game or a championship or playoffs or something, but not regularly at all. No, I can barely name anybody in the NBA anymore at this point.
It's funny. During COVID, it was so hard for me to watch basketball because of all the vaccine pushing and all the social justice warrior bullshit. So I got out of it for a little bit and I'm like slow to get back into it. And it's crazy. I'm like, dude, I feel like I've only stopped watching basketball the last like 3 years. And I don't know anybody. There's all these up and comers and they're like, this guy's nasty. I'm like, who are these guys? I'm like, it's funny how quickly things will just change if you don't keep up with it. But it is a nice getaway. I've found like appreciation in it again, just like being able to kind of get away from like the deeper, darker conversations and being able to kind of hit reset or whatnot. I'm sure going to the gym is your way of kind of dealing with a lot of stuff. Anytime you're consistently hitting on topics that really get people worked up. I'm sure it's nice to be able to
Oh man.
Yeah.
Having trolls and culty people attack you all day and hear the same exact arguments that you've debunked a million times, or the same exact lies and slander and hostility towards you. Without the gym, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. No, same here. Are you good at not reading comments and kind of ignore?
No, I read every comment and I've always been in the comments.
Why would you?
I don't respond to everyone. I don't let everyone get to me, but they all accumulate, like little pinpricks.
Don't you just find that it just adds negativity to your life? Like there's no, like, how much of it do you end up taking from some positive from a comment, right? I mean, I guess I can get it because every once in a while I'll read comments or whatever, or reviews on the podcast, because I'm just like, there's probably somebody really nice out there that, like I want to just tell them, hey, thanks for listening and thanks for the kind words. But then I'm like, and then I could also get some like really shitty comment that's gonna, linger and kind of ruin not my day, but at least my hour or 5 minutes. What benefit do you get out? Or is it just like you just are so curious you have to?
Not a lot of benefit, probably. No, it's probably no benefit. I'd be much better doing research or working on other videos or reading or being with my family than ever looking at the comments. And it's sad too, because I could read like hundreds of really nice, positive, supportive comments, and they'll just be like, one or two total spurgs, keyboard warriors, like lying about me or saying something rude that will get so much more focus in my head. So yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, well, that's more of a them problem than a you problem. Even playing basketball, playing pickup all over the place, you get in these guys, you play with these guys that like always fighting with people, always, scrapping with people, the person who just ruins a run because they're, getting in a fight or whatever. And then you realize like, okay, like this isn't a altercation between me and them. This is like their trauma that they're taking out on me. This is some life issues that they haven't dealt with. And now, that angry internal person that lives in there that just hates the world is just taking it out on me, but it's not about me personally. And that's kind of how I look at like negative comments. It's like, I don't know
Oh
this.
yeah, I actually like them too. Like it gives me pleasure. If I wasn't being attacked, I'd be depressed. It's a sign that I'm being effective, and people's insecure people see me as a threat, and that my information is getting out there and having an impact for
Yeah,
sure.
well, that's a good way of looking at it.
Mhm.
Without a doubt. I mean, if people are talking about you, good or bad, that means you're doing something right, right? Like you're getting attention and you're getting
Mhm.
people to at
If
least.
I'm not pissing off a bunch of Christians and rabbis, I'm not doing something right.
That's yeah, I can see that. But
Yeah.
so do you have any upcoming projects or any upcoming topics or videos or interviews or anything that you want to let the people know? And then also, I know you have been throughout the years. Speaking of censorship, you have been somebody who have also dealt with a lot of censorship. So let people know where they can keep up with your work. I know you're on Odyssey, Rumble. I don't know if you're on any other platforms, but yeah, let people know where they can find your work, where they can keep up with your work and any upcoming projects you may have.
Thanks, Ricky. Yeah, nomorenews.org is my website. I'm on streaming on Rumble and Odyssey. Also post on BitChutes. I'm on X, doing well on X. It streams there and posts there. If anybody's interested to see way deeper dives into the Judeo deception and the Christian deception, the Jesus deception I've been talking about, I got playlists on my Odyssey channel. Also, epic rabbi mixes and the Jesus deception exposed. I'm working on a book about the Jesus deception that'll be out early next year, and probably follow that up with produced videos and documentaries on the issue. And I'm always doing more debates. I'm open to debate serious contenders, and uh, and that's about it. And I enjoyed the talk with you. I'm glad that we got to do it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then hopefully next year we'll have you on another Union of the Unwanted. I know you're also you've been on AM Wake Up with our mutual friend Steve. So that yeah, so hopefully people check out your work. Um I'm glad we bullshit a little bit about other stuff because I think sometimes I like my guests to kind of show a little bit of their human side. You know, it's not like, you know, we can disagree on stuff and still all be friends, and a lot of times we also agree on tons of stuff, but it's important to push back against narratives and push and go against the grain, and people like you are necessary because people shouldn't be living in the echo chamber where every content creator, podcaster, and researcher I listen to is just echoing the same ideas and thoughts I already have. I want to be.
Christian safe space can't have a can't the truther community can't be a Christian safe space.
Yeah,
That's kind of how I see it.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
But thank you so much, Adam, for your time. I really, really appreciate it. If you're ever in the East Coast, let me know. Maybe I can convince you to come play some pickup ball. And
I wish. I wish.
now, yeah, instead of pickup ball, it's more like pickleball now, right? Once you're
I
old.
don't even know about that, honestly. Going to the chiropractor like on a regular basis for 20 years, starting when I'm like 12 years old, and constant repeated compression and impacts on the lower discs and vertebrae. Like I have no pain right now. I've actually, but something gets out of whack, or I step wrong, or do like a box out the wrong way, and I'll be in miserable pain for days or weeks
Yeah,
till it gets cracked right back again,
yeah,
basically.
that's why back injuries are the worst. I hurt my back once. Same thing. Like I mean, I work construction. I lift heavy weights. I play sports. I'm like I'm never hurt. And then one day, just like I took a layup, and then just I landed like just quirked my back a
Mhm.
little bit, and then just tensed up, could not move. And it took like literally like weeks for my lower back muscles to actually relax. I could not get them to relax. Real stiff, couldn't move. My neck was stiff, and every once in a while, doing like just the most just typical thing, I'll end up tweaking it again. And so I'm like super, super religious, for lack of a word, about like working on my core and stretching. Like I do tons of stretch. I don't know if you know who DDP is, the wrestler. Um, he used to be in like WCW or whatnot, but he came up with this thing. As you probably know, like wrestlers take a beating on their bodies, and he came up with this thing called DDP yoga, and it was yoga for like athletes. And he's worked with a lot of professional athletes, a lot of them who had similar injuries where it's like I can never walk again, or I'm always concerned about getting hurt again. And it seems to work. And so when I hurt my back, one thing I would, and again, yoga is like one of those things I just get lazy with. Because I always feel like a wuss. I'm watching some video on YouTube of some woman with like, stretchy pants and, talking normally while I'm like sweating balls and like shaking, in these positions, and she's just like casually talking. But it helps. When I consistently do the yoga and really focus on stretching, it helps so much with just keeping everything aligned. We briefly talked about like this shoe and how the shoe fucked up our mechanics. Because
Oh
now,
yeah, we didn't even get into that. I wanted to comment on that actually.
go ahead, go
Like the tapered toe conspiracy. All of the shoe companies, they all have the style is to have the scrunched toes. Our foot naturally is supposed to be spread out in the widest point of the shoe. So ever since I discovered this, I've got plantar fasciitis probably because of this. My toes, almost everybody's toes, the pinky and the big toe are pushed in permanently. Our foots are deformed, like binding in China, foot binding. So like minimal footwear with wide toes is the only type of shoes that I can wear anymore. Otherwise, it feels like you're just literally being your toes are smushed when you go in regular shoes.
Yeah, well, I played a lot more basketball than soccer in my life. And nice thing about basketball shoes is they're typically wider. And then I go into
A
soccer.
little bit, a little bit. I played soccer and then got into basketball. You're right. The soccer shoes are way worse, but
Way
they're
worse.
like little dance ballet shoes almost how
Yeah.
tight they are. But basketball shoes mostly. Look at LeBron's toes. LeBron's big toe is like literally like pushed over his foot and like completely whacked out, and it's from these shoes.
Yeah. Like to talk about like the Converse, like I was saying before, like players are playing, with new shoes all the time, and they're getting all these custom insoles and whatnot. Like back in the day, they were playing in flat Converse, and people were like, well, how can they do that and play 82 games a season and not have like completely banged up knees? And it's because when your shoe's flat and you don't have a heel, you have to walk and run and jump the natural way on the ball of your feet. So you can't go heel first. If I jump and land on my heel, it's gonna hurt. If I run on my heel, it's gonna hurt. If we go out in the street and we're like, hey, let's sprint, with no shoes, like you're gonna be on the ball of your feet. If you go heel first, it's gonna hurt. And then once Nike, I believe they're the first one. There's a book called Born to Run or Learn to Run, something like that, where they document this. And Nike put that just a heel on a shoe. Now you could run on your heel. Now you can jump on your heel, and it doesn't hurt. And as you know, like anybody who's an athlete and have ever dealt with that injury, like when one thing hurts, you try to make up for it, and your mechanics end up getting messed up, and then you start creating new injuries, right? So it's like, oh, if my ankle hurts, now I'm like kind of milking this ankle a little bit. So I'm running a little weird, and all of a sudden, like my hip starts hurting, and then all of a sudden, something else starts hurting because your mechanics are wrong. So a lot of people believe that the modern sneaker is actually contributing to a lot of our joint issues and knee issues and hip
Yeah,
issues.
my lower disc back pain is probably because I had padded shoes and I wasn't running correctly, where you're running where you land on your heel, and that's not the way the human body anatomically is supposed to run. You're supposed to land on the forefoot is the way that the bones are all designed. And if you have a shoe that's not flat and too padded, there's too much arch support, you lose the arch support muscle, and then it collapses and gets even worse and causes all other types of problems. It's footwear has been so awful, just like like big pharma has had so much awful horrendous stuff. Big footwear, and it's crazy, there's some companies that are like lots of companies are coming out that are minimalist and less padding and flat and spread toes, and still like the big Nikes and Adidas and all the big ones, they still have their tapered toe, and I'm just like, it's literally like a huge conspiracy. Maybe not like a nefarious plot conspiracy, but like something's going on. It needs to end.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with like the food industry causing issues with our inflammation. Glucose is a energy source for cancer. If you have cancer, nobody tells you to stop eating glucose or things that turn into glucose, like carbs and sugar. I got rid of all my joint pain just from removing sugar and carbs from my diet. I eat a very keto-esque, carnivore-esque diet, and
Me too. I tried to, at least. Besides that, I love pizza so much.
Oh, I'm the same way. Are you like my twin brother? You couldn't be because I actually do have a twin brother already.
I
But
thought everybody liked pizza.
you're right. If you don't like pizza, I'm deleting you from my phone. I don't
Yeah.
trust you. You are a psyop. You are Mossad if you don't like pizza. There's something fishy about your work if you don't like pizza. I feel like pizza. My wife's Italian. I'm Portuguese, but I once a week, Sunday nights, we have pizza night with the family, and I just carb load like you wouldn't believe. And then like Monday, I'm right back to my diet. But boy, do my joints feel like shit the next morning just from all the carbs. And but yeah, I mean, I love pizza. And we have some nice thing about it being in the East Coast. We have some amazing pizzerias around here. So,
Dude, because of that one guy, well, one bite, what is it? One slice, one bite. What's his name? Barstool.
yeah, yeah.
Portnoy. Because of his videos going to all the pizza places all over the East Coast, it makes me want to do an East Coast pizza trip. That would be epic.
Well, so in town, the town that I live in, Ludlow, which is on my shirt, he actually checked out one that was here called Casa Pizzeria, and phenomenal. It's actually my favorite pizzeria anywhere in the East Coast. I've tried them all. This guy is like the way he gets so deep into pizza, like he will talk to your ear off about pizza, like the same way you would talk about religion. Like he would just be like, dude, you're like it's information overload. Like he'll talk about ovens, he'll talk about meeting some like pizza, guy who's like this world famous pizza maker, and it's just like this guy loves pizza, and and his passion comes out in his pizza. He has the like most phenomenal pizza. The dough's amazing. He has every single style you could think of, from like deep dish to New York style to whatever. And it's absolutely amazing. It's what many people would say would be it's a little overpriced. I don't think it's overpriced. I think it's an artisan type of pizzeria. All he makes is pizza. He doesn't get nothing else, like only pizza. And if I'm a wine drinker, so get me a bottle of wine and some pizza, dude. I'm in heaven. And so that's how we end our Sunday nights. I play pickup soccer Sunday nights, come home, we eat pizza with the family, watch a movie, and it's like it's awesome. So it's like that's a one cheap meal that or I call it a reward meal. That I'm like I don't think I'll ever give up pizza. Like I'll go a week or two where I'm like, oh, I'll skip pizza this week, but eventually I'll be back. But
I'm gluten free minus pizza.
Yeah. Well, you enjoy it when you eat good, right? Like I always tell people, I'm like if I eat pizza every day, like I eventually satisfaction is the death of desire, right? Like I lose desire for it. But I'm like, when I only eat carbs and bread like once a week, I'm like, that shit tastes better for me than it does for you, because I'm like, I've suppressed it from my diet all week. And then, you really appreciate it, right? So the yin and yang, you appreciate stuff if you don't have it all the time. So but yeah. So maybe not pick up ball, but if you're ever in the East Coast, maybe we'll go be slobs and eat some pizza. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Adam.
Sounds good.
Thanks again for your time, and I'll send you links to the show once it's up and live, and we'll definitely keep in touch and hopefully have you on in the future show.
Cool. Look forward to it. Thanks, man. Good talking with you.
Hey, you too. Take care.
Believe in the ripple effect.